Marco Pantani has enjoyed a lot of fame and is one of the icons of the sport, despite only having 26 wins on his palmarès. The legend of Pantani has grown stronger since his unfortunate death in 2004. But how good was this legend of cycling, really? Marco Pantani is from the coastal town of Cesenatico in the Emilia-Romagna region and started road racing at the age of 11 as part of the Fausto Coppi cycling club. Pantani had a successful amateur career. He rode the under-23 Giro-Tour 3 times in 1990, 1991 and 1992. 92 was the year for Pantani as he finally took the overall in the under-23 Giro-d'Italia. For the remainder of the 92 season, Pantani turned pro for the Carrera Jean Vagabond team. Pantani's first notable result as a professional was 5th overall at the Giro del Trentino, and he also debuted at the 1993 Giro d'Italia, where his team role was to help his leader Claudio Chiappucci. However, his Giro debut was cut short on the 18th stage due to tendinitis. The 1994 season would be another story, as he would return to the Giro d'Italia, and on the 14th stage, the Giro entered the Dolomites. It was on the final climb here where Pantani made his move on the Passo dei Monti Giovo, where he finally had the freedom to pursue a stage win. During the stage, Pantani attacked the Malairosa group and managed to catch and pass all the breakaway riders, and there was simply nothing that the Malairosa group could do, but Pantani wasn't threatening the overall lead of Berzin. Pantani won the stage by 40 seconds ahead of Gianni Bugno, Miguel Indurain and Claudio Chiappucci, clinching his first maiden professional victory and in the process moving himself up in the general classification to 6th. The next stage was a harder prospect as the stage included the Passo del Stelvio, the Passo del Mortirolo and the Valico di Santa Cristiana. On the Mortirolo, Pantani attacked and passed the crest alone. Pantani's ascent of the Mortirolo that day was incredible. He managed to drop the Malairosa Berzin on the slopes, and he also smashed the record with a time of 42 minutes and 40 seconds, averaging 16.95 kilometers an hour up this terrifying climb. Pantani was in a small elite group alongside the reigning double Giro-Tour champion Miguel Indurain, but the Italian attacked Indurain on the Valico di Santa Cristiana, and the following descent gave the cycling world a masterclass in descending from Pantani himself. He attacked again and soloed into the finish in Aprica. Miguel Indurain crept to the finish line 3 minutes and 30 seconds behind Pantani, and Malairosa wearer Berzin came in half a minute later than Indurain. Pantani had elevated himself into 2nd place in the general classification, a place that he kept until the end of the race behind Berzin, but he won the young riders classification overall as well. A few weeks later, Marco Pantani lined up for his first ever Tour de France. Pantani had had a rough start to the Tour, as on the first 7.2 kilometer stage he lost 56 seconds, and by the end of stage 10 Pantani was not even in the top 20 of the general classification. When the race entered the Pyrenees on stage 11, Pantani was the first to attack on the slopes of the Haut-de-Camp. Indurain, the defending champion, was isolated in the chase group and had to pull the Italian back himself. One rider at the time, Indurain's rivals, were shed off his back wheel before only Luc Leblanc was left with the Spanish champion. However, in the misty final kilometers, a duo of Indurain and Leblanc caught Pantani and unfortunately passed the Italian rider. Leblanc took the stage win 2 seconds ahead of Indurain and 18 seconds ahead of Marco Pantani. Pantani may not have won the day, but he certainly made a statement to the cycling world. During the second stage in the Pyrenees, Pantani repeated this solo feat with a stage that included climbs such as the Périssord, Aspin, Tourmalet and finally Luc Ardinen. This time, Pantani finished 2nd, 4 minutes and 30 seconds behind the solo stage winner of Richard Virenque. At the end of his first tour, Pantani came away, finishing 3rd in the general classification and taking the white jersey as well. In 1995, Pantani was unable to take part in the Giro d'Italia as he was hit by a car whilst out training, but the Italian superstar in the making lined up for his 2nd Tour de France following a decent appearance at the Tour de Suisse, where he won stage 8 of Flumserberg. Pantani suffered in this first week as he finished 105th in the opening prologue and 55th on stage 8, which was a 54-kilometer time trial won by defending champion Miguel Indurain, and Pantani was 7 minutes and 51 seconds down on the Spanish superstar. Despite the slow start to Pantani's tour, he managed to climb up the general classification on stage 9, which finished up La Plage but his first explosive performance was on stage 10, which finished up the Alpe d'Huez. Pantani attacked the yellow jersey repeatedly and soloed up the iconic mountain, and he put in 1 minute and 24 seconds into Miguel Indurain and Alex Soula on this stage. Not only did Pantani win the stage, but his ascent up the 13.8 kilometer climb was 36 minutes and 40 seconds. This record remains the fastest ascent of this climb to this day. In the Pyrenees, Pantani again showed his strength in the mountains, finishing 2 minutes and 31 seconds ahead of the chasers, which included Miguel Indurain, and this win actually moved him back up to 7th in the GC. Pantani dropped a few places again in the GC following the penultimate stage, which was yet again a time trial, so by the time the peloton finished in Paris, Pantani was 13th overall. The 1995 Tour de France had not only demonstrated Pantani's incredible climbing prowess, but it also highlighted his weakness in the time trial. If he were to defeat the Tour winning machine of Indurain, this would be something where he would need to improve. In 1997, Pantani's return to the Tour de France was incredible, as he had recovered from a serious injury that had left him 2 years out of competition following a head-on collision with a car. By the end of stage 8, Pantani was suffering in the GC as he was 7 minutes and 17 seconds down on the yellow jersey. However, stage 13 was the pinnacle of his Tour de France, taking a win yet again on the mythical Alpe d'Huez, and it would be remembered as something extraordinary, with one of the fastest times recorded on the climb again, with 36 minutes and 53 seconds. Days later, on the final ascent, the Col de Jourdain, Pantani attacked a small group that included the yellow jersey wearer Jan Ullrich and Richard Virenque. Marco Pantani would win his second stage in Morzine. Pantani's winning margin on the day was 1 minute and 17 seconds, and Pantani moved onto the podium. He managed to keep his place on the podium behind eventual winner Jan Ullrich and Richard Virenque. Despite the 2-year gap, Pantani really wanted that Tour de France victory and even a win in the Giro d'Italia. And he was to prove his doubters wrong in 1998, which was no doubt the year of Marco Pantani. Pantani lined up for the 81st edition of the Giro d'Italia, which started in Nice. Pantani lost time in the first week as usual, but he gave an impressive show of strength in the Dolomites in the final week of the Giro. On stage 14, finishing up to Piancavallo, Marco Pantani's team was setting the pace at the front in order to try and make their team captain take his first stage win since 1994. Pavel Tonkov was the only rider who was able to follow Pantani's initial acceleration after his team had done most of the work, but Tonkov was dropped on the steep part of the climb. Pantani managed to take the stage win and finish 13 seconds ahead of Maglia Rosa wearer Alex Soula and Tonkov. Pantani recorded a time of 36 minutes and 20 seconds at Piancavallo, which is still the record to this day. Just to compare this time, in the 2020 Giro d'Italia, the peloton went up the same climb, and the fastest time was recorded by Jide Hindley, Wilco Kelderman, and eventual winner of the race, Theo Gegenhardt, with a time of 37 minutes and 50 seconds, which was 1 minute and 30 seconds slower than Marco Pantani. The following stage was a nightmare scenario for Pantani, as it was a 40-kilometer time trial, and he also lost 3 minutes and 26 seconds to the pink jersey wearer Alex Soula. On stage 17, Pantani was looking to overturn his 3 minute and 48 second deficit to Alex Soula. During the stage, Alex Soula actually cracked on the final climb, and Giuseppe Guerini won the stage and Pantani finished second. This meant that Pantani would take over the Maglia Rosa and maintained an advantage of 30 seconds in the general classification over the Russian Pavel Tonkov. And for the first time, he had an advantage over Alex Soula with a time of 1 minute and 1 second. The two subsequent stages of the Giro were also in the Dolomites. His Mercatona Uno team were in control. Pantani won stage 19 with an attack in the last 3 kilometers. When the Giro d'Italia finally descended upon Milan, which was the final destination, Pantani won the general classification with 1.5 minutes over Tonkov and almost 7 minutes over Giuseppe Guerini, who was third. In addition, Pantani also won the mountains classification to add to his collection. Pantani, however, was not just content with Giro d'Italia success, he also also tried it in the Tour de France. And in the first week, Pantani had lost more than 4 minutes to Jan Ullrich, who was the winner of the 1997 Tour de France. As expected, Jan Ullrich took the yellow jersey after a powerful performance in the first time trial on stage 7, which was very long at 58 kilometers and finished in Turquoise. On stage 10, Pantani attacked on the last climb, the Col de la Perosord, although the stage winner was Italian Rodolfo Massi. Despite not taking a stage win, Pantani did manage to take 23 seconds off Jan Ullrich's GC advantage. The second stage in the Pyrenees was very mountainous with 5 climbs. Pantani managed to drop the peloton on the final set on the Plateau de Billy and win stage 11. He took a huge chunk of 1 minute and 39 seconds out of Jan Ullrich's lead, and at the end of the first week, Pantani was 3 minutes behind the German in the general classification. In the Alps on stage 15, starting in Grenoble, Pantani threw his whole Tour de France on the line with an attack many riders would have deemed suicidal, and the attack began on the Galibier. Pantani's acceleration was so fast that no one could go with him, and as the climb progressed, the suffering for Ullrich began. Pantani passed the Galibier with 2 minutes and 29 seconds of an advantage over Ullrich, and on the descent, Pantani had managed to catch some of the riders in the lead, and the advantage increased ever more over the chasing German. At the start of the final climb, Le Deux Alpes, Pantani's lead over Ullrich was already more than 4 minutes. Pantani crossed the finishing line first after his incredible effort, and the defending champion Jan Ullrich arrived 9 minutes after Marco Pantani, losing the yellow jersey in the process. The next mountain stage, Pantani kept the difference with him and Jan Ullrich when the two managed to drop everyone and they reached the finishing line together, and in a sprint, the German won in Albertville. On the penultimate stage of that year's Tour de France, which was a 53-kilometer time trial, the defending champion Jan Ullrich was only able to beat Marco Pantani by 2.5 minutes, although he did take second place in the general classification as a result. Pantani was crowned the Tour champion with a margin of 3 minutes and 21 seconds ahead of Jan Ullrich and 4 minutes and 8 seconds over Bobby Julich. That meant Marco Pantani had completed the Giro-Tour double in one season, and Indurain was the rider who had last accomplished this feat in 1993, but there has not been a rider since Marco Pantani to achieve this amazing feat in the sport of cycling. The 2000 Tour de France was Pantani's first appearance at the race since his 1998 triumph and his expulsion of the 1999 Giro d'Italia. Marco Pantani was not the same rider as he used to be, and the big name on the start line was the defending champion, one American Lance Armstrong. It wasn't until stage 12, which finished up the top of Mont Ventoux, before Pantani made his mark. Pantani was behind an elite group of 6 riders, which included Jan Ullrich and Armstrong, but the Italian icon managed to close the gap, and with about 5 kilometers to go, Pantani surprised everyone and launched several attacks, with Roberto Heras the first to respond. Pantani was not content and upped the pace and tried to break that elastic. After a flurry of attacks, Pantani had finally dropped the group, but it was only one Lance Armstrong who decided to bridge the gap to the sole Italian. Pantani managed to take the win on the Bald Mountain, and Armstrong later said in an interview that he regretted gifting the Pirate the win, but the performance from Pantani was one for the ages and his penultimate hurrah of his career. Stage 15 was another mountainous affair with 2 of the Tour's favorite climbs along the way, the Galibier and the Madeleine, as the focal points before the stage would finish up the 22.2 kilometer Courchevel. Pantani attacked early on the final ascent, and only Armstrong and a few other riders could hold his wheel, but eventually it was just the Italian and Armstrong once again as they were hoovering up all the breakaway riders of the day. Pantani passed the remaining breakaway riders without Armstrong, who arrived 50 seconds after Pantani, and that was the last hurrah of Marco Pantani as he didn't finish that year's Tour de France. Pantani was well and truly an incredible rider and a gift to the sport of cycling, and he still holds multiple climbing records in the Tour de France and Giro d'Italia to this day, which is the reason for his legend and his placement in the upper echelons of the cycling history books. And long may his legend continue. That's it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed that. I am, of course, a big Marco Pantani fan, and I would love to hear what you think of the legend of the sport. So make sure to drop down your comments in the comment section down below. And as always, thank you for watching and see you next time.